I welcome today in the Mind Changer studio Dr. Ben Fuhrman. I'm very happy that you are here.
Thank you.
And I know you, I've been knowing you for many, many years from the solution focused therapy and also consulting. And every year, I would say you bring out new therapy, new theory about this topic. I like it very much. And today it is a rather new topic. It's about supporting family and friends. And we talked a little bit before, and we talked about the difference between when somebody comes to you and says, I need your help, I need your support, or you come to the people, to your friends, to your family, and you say, I think you've got a problem.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about today?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for making that clear. My favorite thing that I've been teaching for many years is called solution focused therapy and coaching. And you know, when we teach our coaches, so it is not uncommon that when they start to learn the method, you know, the miracle question, the scaling question, there are many nice methods in solution focused therapy, how to talk to our clients. We know how to start. We ask questions like, what would be a good result for you from this conversation? Is a typical solution focused starting of a conversation. Then our students, they kind of realize that many of their friends come to them with problems. And not only their friends, their spouse, their partner, their mother, their children, their teenage children, their adult children, everybody comes to them complaining about some problem in the marriage, problem in the school, problems with depression, with anxiety, all the problems in the world. And then they would like to be helpful. Now they are a little bit sitting on two chairs because they have learned the solution focused approach, which they feel works very well with their clients, but they cannot use those same methods with their children. The children will say, Mommy, stop it! I am not your client! They will be annoyed. All these therapeutic techniques, they are very annoying to people. And if you start to use those techniques and questions with your partner will be offended. What are you doing? Be normal. Don't speak to me like you speak to your clients. So we are kind of having to deal with the question of how could you use these ideas without appearing like a bloody therapist. You know, people get annoyed if you behave like many of our students have said that their children have had that kind of responses. Mommy, stop it. I hate it. Why you ask those stupid questions? And they kind of, notice that you are putting your therapy hat on and you are starting to behave. Maybe even your sound of your voice is a little bit different because you are behaving like you are in your work. So then the question is there something we can take from what we learn in solution-focused way, but bake it, make it right, so it feels okay. Even when we use those techniques with our best friend or our mother or our daughter.
So it is something like therapy without the therapy.
That's exactly correct. You hit the head of the nail. It is like being therapeutic without appearing like you are a therapist. So you're just, loaning, borrowing ideas from the therapy world, but you have to repackage them so that it is not annoying and you don't sound like you are somehow above or being other than a friend.
Mhm. Okay, and I mean, how do I start it? Imagine a friend comes now, he has kind of problem, or my child comes, has kind of problem, or my partner. So how do I start appearing differently from a
A
therapist,
therapist, yes.
but still using the methods?
Yes, still using some of the ideas, let's say so. So if you're starting to use a method, you're already a little bit on the shaky ground. But I would like to say that one of the key methods that all coaches and therapists use is simply good listening. They call it now reflective listening, or even deep listening, active listening, we used to say in the past. But this is a technique that both normal people and therapists and coaches, we all can use the technique of active listening. And I'm quite fascinated about it because there is a FBI negotiator. You know, those negotiators who have to negotiate in hostage situations? His name is Voss, and he's like a celebrity on the internet now. So a lot of people have seen or heard him on YouTube or on podcasts, frequently invited guest, and he is a proponent of reflective listening. He says it's one of the most important tools in hostage negotiations to listen to the person who has taken the hostages. And he's analyzed how to do good active listening. I like that idea a lot because, of course, as therapists and coaches, we are already good at listening and we have a good ear. And this good ear, this good listening ear, is something that we can use with our spouses, with our own children, and it means cool down. Don't start giving advice. Listen is better. If you just listen, the person will start to develop their own ideas about what might be helpful to them. But listening is not just yes, you have to watch you have to look in the right direction, and yes, you go like okay. You show that you are interested. But there's more to listening. You can also sometimes you can become a little bit like think. So what you are saying is called summarizing. So what you are saying is that your boss is demanding too much from you, and you don't know how to tell him that he shouldn't do that. Something like that. Did I get it right? Correct me if I'm wrong. You remember this in English? They often say, "Correct me if I'm wrong," and then the person starts to feel, "Yeah, that's it. You have really understood what I'm saying." So somehow this experience that you can give simply by active listening, wow, it can already change things. People feel that you are listening to them, and when they feel that you are listening to them, then something happens with the brain. I always say there is a creative part in your brain, but the door is closed because you are so anxious and so worried, and you are like so angry, or you are blaming yourself, or you are blaming somebody else. So the door to the creative part of your mind is closed. Now, active listening is perhaps the most effective way of kind of starting to open that door. And there's one more technique that I'd like to mention about active listening. It's about responding to emotions. So if the person is angry, you can say, "You're angry. No wonder you are angry. Anybody would be angry." If the person is sad, you can go like, "I can understand that you are sad. Even just hearing you talk about it makes me sad too." You are confirming the emotion. I often joke about it, and I say the worst thing that you can tell to a person is that they have the wrong emotion. Why are you so angry? That's not a reason to start to cry. And you are laughing. You are questioning the person's emotional reaction to the situation. You are overreacting. You say, you are overreacting. That's the worst thing you can say. That automatically closes the door to that creative part of the brain. But the opposite is true. If you say, you are upset, no wonder you are upset. Anybody would be upset in your situation. That feels good. And you say, you understand me. You understand how I feel. Yes, of course I understand how you feel. Anybody would be feeling like you are feeling in that situation. And those are some of the techniques of active listening. It's not just, It's also responding to the person's feelings and summarizing a little bit what they have been telling you and appearing that you are really truly interested. Voss, the guy I mentioned, the hostage negotiator, he is convinced that you should repeat the last few words of the sentence that the person is saying. So there is an old technique from psychotherapy that we repeat some of the words that the person is saying. So if the person is saying, I hate him, he's an idiot, why he's making my life, miserable. So you would say something like, oh, he's making your life miserable. You are repeating some of the words, but I advise that you should be careful because you might be soon sounding like a parrot who is like repeating some of the words. That's what happened in the past in the world of psychotherapy with client-centered psychotherapy. There, the advice was to repeat the words, and it can sound a little bit funny if you do it too much, so very careful with repeating the words. But it's a good technique, says Dr. Voss.
So in principle, it is a good mix of repeating what you heard, about repeating some real words, the client, not the client,
Yeah, good.
friend, the family member, the
Yeah.
said, and it is about putting together the state, the emotional state I can see, and saying I can understand that it makes you sad, that it makes you angry, whatever. Good. And then we are like, he's telling more and more, and I am, I say more and more, that's understandable. And what happens then?
See, I think the key maybe is patience. I don't always have that patience, and so I'm not trying to be any better than anybody else. But I think what is the risk is that we have such a strong need to start to give advice. We all have that. So why don't you do like that? If I were you, I would go and I would do like this. I would not allow anybody to do this, and I don't understand why you don't do this. And of course you should do it. We are so quick at giving advice. Maybe in our work we are a little bit better, plaster. Maybe, you have to be patient, so that the person can start to develop their own solutions. So it's much better to give some compliments or to show some sympathy and use other techniques and not give advice. Even sometimes when people ask for, what would you do? So tell me, what shall I do? Please, I'm desperate, give me advice. They ask for advice. Even in that case, you should be a little bit careful before you give advice, because maybe they are not asking for advice. Maybe they are asking your opinion about what they have tried to do so far. Sometimes you say, what shall I do? Then you tell people, well, you should do so and so. And have I asked you something? they are angry when you start giving them advice, because really they didn't ask you anything. They, even if it was not clear, they were asking, what do you think about what I have tried to do so far? They want to have some confirmation. So that could be one of the second things that you could do. I mean, there are many things you can do that are not giving advice. But one thing that maybe we should always do with our friends and children and so on, we say, what have you done? How did you react? What steps have you already taken? This is a typical solution-focused question, but of course you present it differently when it's your friend. So you say, what have you done? What did you do? And then when the person starts telling what they do, maybe you could give them a compliment. Oh, that sounds like a good idea. Wow, you did right. Let's say your child comes and somebody bullied me at school, and they are crying and I don't want to go to school anymore. I'm never going to school anymore. And mommy, you cannot, you cannot force me. I hate school, and they bullied me. Somebody bullied me in the school. Then you listen, of course, we already talked about that. Of course you are angry, of course you are upset, of course you feel like you don't want to go to school. You confirm the emotional state. And then maybe the next question could be, so what did you do? And then I left school, or I shouted, or I went to the teacher. Let's say I went to the teacher and I told the teacher. Then you, as a mother, you could say, wow, I'm proud of you. That was a good thing to do. You were brave enough to go to the teacher. I'm proud of you. You are my daughter. You are my son. You inherited my strength. Give some compliment about what the person has already, even if they didn't do anything. I didn't do anything. You could say, well, that was maybe the wisest thing to do. Good, you didn't do anything. How come you're so clever? Already you're starting to feel a little bit better. Mommy, do you think it was the right thing to do? Yeah, I think it was the right thing to do. If you are confirmed that it was the right thing to do, you're already starting to feel a little bit better about yourself. And then maybe again, the door to your creative part of the mind starts to open up. So yes, we can take some solution-focused ideas, not to use them directly like you would in a solution-focused therapy or coaching session. You wouldn't say to a friend, on a scale from 1 to 10, where do you feel you are now, when 10 is that you have solved your problem and 1 is that you haven't even started to solve it. You couldn't present questions like that to a friend. They would be annoyed and they would feel, nah, I don't want to talk with you anymore. I'm going to talk to daddy and not to mommy. Mommy is too much, doing psychological tricks on me.
Yeah. So I imagine now, let's say a mother or a father has a talk to his or her son, and the son comes with experiences which the parents would not appreciate so much. So he or she says, you know what, I just hit him KO. Yeah. And mother and father think, oh my God, this is the wrongest he could do. How can you come to an appreciating state in this situation if you feel it is not good?
Yeah, that's a good question. I killed him. What did you do? I killed him. Oh, good, you killed him. That is impossible. But, even if people did something wrong, you may analyze a little bit what they did. maybe this is a little bit theoretical, but let's say I pushed him and I said, you are an idiot. Then you go like, okay. So what did you do? What happened then? And hoping that they said that then after that I apologized. Then you can say, wow, you hit him and you knew that that was not the right thing to do, but then you apologize. Or, so now you hit him, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? Maybe I have to talk with him tomorrow about it. Wow, I think that's a good idea. See, if somebody did something wrong, like they said my daughter came home too late in the night, and I told him that he should be home at 10, and he came at 10:30, and I became so angry, I slammed her in the face, and I said, I take your phone, and you are not going to have your phone for 1 week. You are the best friend. You are like, maybe that's not such a wise thing to do. So you will not compliment them for doing something stupid, but you can compliment them and say, oh, you must have been very upset. I can understand that. So you can, at least you can confirm the emotional state, which we talked about before. And then maybe you can start to, talk about what could be a wiser thing to do. You could even say, are you happy with that solution, or did you feel that that was maybe not the best possible solution? Have you already thought about some other how to what to do? So now we are already entering some of the other ideas. It's like, because there is also this wonderful question that you can always, not to give your own advice, but to ask people, have you thought about what you could do in this? Do you have some ideas? Or even my favorite, where does this feeling come that I have the feeling that you already have some ideas about? Isn't that a nice one? I have this feeling that you already have some ideas of what to do about it. So then people, do I? I'm not sure. But if you have the feeling that I have some ideas, so maybe I have some ideas. So people often, the belief in solution-focused therapy is that the client has the solution to his problem, only he does not know that he knows it. This comes from Milton Erickson. So then one more interesting technique that we might use in our everyday contact with people is it's a very simple technique. It's saying, so what ideas do you have? Or I have the feeling that you already have some ideas that you might do. What do you think could be your next step? Even if the person says, I don't know what is my next step. I say, but what is your hunch? What kind of ideas do you have about what could be your next step? If you knew what was your next step, what do you think you would tell me? So we can also help people by giving them the suggestion that they perhaps already have some ideas, and always better to be interested in your ideas than to, I know what you should do. Why don't you do like this? And even in the world of psychotherapy, when we teach students psychotherapy and we teach solution-focused approach, where you try not to give advice, but you try to help people, develop their own ideas, we have seen many, many times that our, let's say, younger therapy students who are not yet so trained, they often start to give advice, even if they're told don't give advice. Because there is some kind of a, maybe because we suffer, the person is having so many problems, our own daughter, our own mother, our own brother, our own best friend. So you have a strong urge to start to give advice. And Maybe it's better to be patient and to wait
Yes.
and use other techniques instead. I know it's difficult, but maybe it's better.
So how can I stay patient? I mean, it is usually, as I experience it, the ideas, the suggestions come very fast. We
Yeah.
can't grab them. We can't close our mouths as fast as possible. So how can we keep out of their way so that we simply um, we have enough patience?
I was hoping that if I could, I don't know if it's possible, to develop some kind of a list of suggestions before you give advice. Try this, try that, try this. So if it would be, maybe you have to practice or train ourselves because it's not so easy. But in solution focused therapy, we train that all the time. So maybe we could at least try to use the same ideas with our loved ones. We could be better at listening patiently. We could be better at finding out what people already are doing a little bit that we can give them some compliments about. We can be better at asking them what they think they might do, and then be, oh yeah, sounds like a good idea, or maybe not exactly like that, but it's a good starting point. You could start to kind of allow people to develop their own ideas rather than give them your ideas. So yes, I think there are methods, and one more method that we should have. I don't know where, so we don't start to give too much advice. We need other things. Rather than saying to people, don't give advice, we say, before you give advice, try this, try this, try this. And one more is telling about your own experiences. In psychotherapy and coaching, we are a little bit shy to tell about our own experiences. We are taught that we speak with the client and keep your own problems away from the conversation. You are disturbing the client with your own problems. But with family and friends, it's different. You can say, wow, I remember I've been in a similar situation in my life. 2 years ago, I had something like that. Do you want me to tell you about it? So, yes, please tell me about. People love to hear not advice, but other people's experiences. I also lost a good friend 2 years ago. So I can feel a little bit similar feelings because I'm reminded, yes, you did? Tell me about it. And then the person hears your story, and somehow our stories can be very healing. First of all, they give you the feeling, oh, I'm not alone. Other people have had similar experience. I also lost a job that I loved my work, but then something happened, COVID, something. I lost my job, and it was my favorite. I had worked for 20 years to get this job, and I lost it. Really? What did you do? How did you deal with it? And then you start to tell about your own feelings and your own experiences. And this could be true for parents too. When children come to us and they complain about, I don't know, bullying in school or unfair teacher or, too much work in school. And I can remember when I was in school, I had similar experience. Yes, mommy. Yes, daddy. What happened? Well, it was quite tough time. And then, oh, my father has also had a tough time. Oh, now I can feel normal again. And now I can maybe be curious about how my father dealt with similar situations in his life. See, this is a technique that is not so useful in therapeutic and coaching situations, but it can be used very effectively in close relationships.
Mhm, mhm. So, and let's assume we came through our own examples, and I ask, so what do you think you could do? How do we go further in, let's say, in a dialogue like this? with friends, with family?
Yeah, I don't know other than you have to continue to be patient, not to give your own advice. But there are a few more techniques that you can use. I think one of the techniques that is very central in brief therapy, in solution-focused therapy, in other forms of brief therapy, is in English they say tapping into the client's resources, meaning that you try to find out what the client is good at. So if you say that, I remember some client of mine many years ago, I found out that he's good at piano playing, and he composes his own, music. And I knew what the problem was, so I think I even asked this question after we had had a session. I wrote a little email or message, and I said, "You said that you are good, or you like to compose music, and this is one of your hobbies or talents. Do you think you might, create a piece of music that could help you with this problem of yours? A song about the topic, or a poem about lyrics?" So the client said, "Yeah, that's a good idea. I can do that." And somehow creating that piece of music that was based on his own talents or interests or hobbies, I think it didn't, solve all the problem, but it helped. So now, can we use this technique with our friends? Meaning that when you know that your daughter is very good at writing, for example, or your mother is, good at, I don't know, watching movies. So then you immediately, you are so good at writing things down. Why don't you write a story about this? Or you are so good at apologizing to people when you have hurt their feelings. Do you think you could use that talent of yours? So I think that it borders psychotherapy, but maybe it is something that we could, to some extent, use with our children, our loved ones, our friends. I've noticed that you are very good at negotiating. Do you think this could be a situation where you could use some of your negotiation skills? I know that you are very good at, what shall we say, sports.
Video games? And video games?
Yeah, you are so good with video games.
Strategy, competences?
Yeah, anything. And then you kind of hint. You suggest, do you think you could use any of that? You are so good with video games. What is your secret with the video game? Why are you so good at it? Okay, so is that something that you could use? So this is actually a therapeutic technique, but with some sensitivity, maybe we could use that technique in helping our loved ones.
Mm-hmm. 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 Now I could imagine that many people watching now our dialogue think, how can I gain more patience? Because I should have the patience already before I start the dialogue. And whenever my son comes with this, or whenever my partner comes with this, that's over. It's simply over. How can we learn patience? Can we learn it?
My colleague Tapani Ahola, he's also sometimes a little bit impatient. He comes from the tradition of brief therapy, where you actually did give advice to people, and then we became interested in solution-focused therapy, where you don't, or you try not to give advice to people. So there's a balance between, I have an idea for you that might help you, and then holding back and then saying, what kind of ideas do you have that might help you, that you have used before? And that reminds me of one more technique that I didn't mention, is like, have you had similar situations in your life before? Yes. 5 years ago, I was in a little bit similar situation. How did you deal with that situation? Is also a very good question that is typical for solution-focused therapy, but can also be used with our friends. Now back to my friend, my colleague, Tapani. He has a funny solution to this one. He always has some paper and pen, and then he said, I have an idea. I'm not going to tell it to you, but I'm going to write it down on this little piece of paper. And then he writes something. The client is super curious about what did he write in that little piece of. Then he puts the paper away and tries to continue with the solution-focused approach. Now, if the solution-focused approach is successful, the client starts to develop some ideas. Then it's quite nice when you take at the end of the session, so do you want to know what I wrote here on my piece of paper as we were talking? And the person is like, yeah, what did you write? I want to know, what did you write? It's a secret thing. And then you read your own advice from the piece of paper, and it is very similar to what the client has been developing during the conversation. So this was like his technique of creating a little bit, yes, curiosity, but patience, not to give your ideas too quickly to people. They may not be ready to take even if it was a really good idea, they may not be ready to take it. So I think it's a skill that we need to develop, and the more we practice solution-focused therapy and coaching, if we are interested in this field, then of course we learn it also from the work, and then we just have to remind it, I have to try to use this in other relationships too, because it pays.
This is very interesting. I could listen to you all the day. On the other side, I think many who listen now are keen on trying it. I think there is a lot to find out, to just try out. Can you ever be wrong?
About what?
Can you ever be wrong with what you do if you follow the path you mentioned now?
I think this is anyway, all these skills that we are talking, they are trial and error type of skills. There can never be, instructions that this is the way to do it, and follow these instructions and everything will be okay. People are responding, and it's alive. They call it improvisation. So it's an art. Therapy, coaching, and even talking with your friends is an art of improv. That means you have to be very sensitive. What happens if I say like this? The person didn't like at all my question. It says here I should ask like this, but maybe this person hated that kind of a question. So you have to be flexible, and flexibility is the key to everything in life. But then you go like, that didn't, in English they say, that didn't fly. I asked him what ideas he has, but it didn't fly. He became angry or irritated, and particularly with our own children, it's very sensitive to talk with them. They become very easily, you don't understand anything. Why you ask me so stupid questions, or that's a stupid idea. I never do anything like that. I hate to talk with you. It's very sensitive, so we have to learn by trial and error. But it would be nice to have some friends who are interested in the same topic, so we can at least share our experiences.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank
It was
you.
a pleasure. And I hope you will also have a live online session so that people can ask you questions. I think there will be lots of questions coming up now according to what you said and what you talked about. Thank you so much and have a wonderful time.
Thank you.